So then, what were the following steps for you? Then have to make your way to Manchester and sign a contract. Someone tells you look smart. What were those moments like? Do you remember seeing Old Trafford and Carrington and the dressing room and stuff?
Yeah, I also remember another boneheaded move I made so I'm in Boston, and I know I'm getting on a plane in a few days with my agent to head over to Manchester to sign. So again, this will illustrate for everybody when I talk about we didn't have football on TV. There wasn't pathways to youth teams, all that kind of football understanding. So the day before the Boston game, I went to the shopping mall, and I think JCPenney's or Macy's. And I had a suit, I had a nice gray suit, and I bought a shirt and tie and shoes to match. So I turned up at Old Trafford, and I thought it looked smart too, and so did she. And I had a sky blue shirt with a sky blue and navy tie. Yeah. I'm signing for Manchester United, by the way. Yeah. Oh. And it was only probably not even at the time, not walking through the tunnel at Old Trafford. It was probably only months later that I saw pictures. I thought, oh, brilliant. And I went, wait a minute. I think there's another team in Manchester that wear that. But again, this is this stupid American kid. I had no idea.
It's understandable.
At that point, no one else did either. They hadn't been bought yet.
It's true. You're right. I agree with you. And so it was then. That's when to your question. That's when it really hit home. Like the phone calls were great, and the courtship was great, and signing and wearing the scarf and all that. It was all amazing. Then I get back on the plane, and they're saying, okay, now you're going to meet the team in Portland, Oregon, and there's a game. And now I'm like, whoa, I have to actually play? That's a bit crazy. No one told me that, So that was when it really sunk in, getting around those players, being in the dressing room with those guys, and like getting a real understanding of I think my first day in Portland, I'm on the pitch and it's hot, and I think it was Ruud van Nistelrooy. I think after training he popped off and he said something to him, and he kicked the ball over the building, and he's doing extra shooting, and Sir Alex Ferguson saying, get off the training ground. He's going, I'm doing more, and I was thinking to myself, what have I gotten into here? Yeah.
So Tasker has sent us photos from your signing day. So if I hold it up to the camera. So beautiful. You do look very smart.
Thanks.
Are you 22 in this photo?
Yeah. How old do I look?
About 40. You look like a fully developed grown man.
Yeah, 22. Yeah. I know. Crazy. Brilliant.
What was your first day training like? Obviously, come to shooting practice. Did you think, Jesus, this is...
Well, that was the one for me, Maisie, is that like... It was a shooting practice. I'm like, I'm a pretty good goalkeeper. I've been in the national team a little bit. But like, you're jumping at the end of shooting, and like you can't even... Your job is to save the ball. I couldn't even see the ball. I mean, when I hit it, when it hit my hands, it hurt. I was just like... It was so strange. And I was like, wait a minute. I'm so many levels below here. Like, what do I actually do? Like, how do I actually... So it was definitely the one of the times in my life where I just thought, right, this is massively sink or swim. Like you've got to figure this out like on the fly. You got to get this right now. There's not going to be any time. So that was really difficult and daunting, for sure.
So your debut was the Community Shield. It was against Arsenal. How did that go for you? What was the day like?
Brilliant. Get some pictures of that too. That was that was amazing. It was like, I looking back, you just like, Sir Alex Ferguson they call him a genius, right? And he has things figured out, and he makes all the right decisions, and the ones he doesn't, he gets right very quickly after. And it's like, I'm looking back thinking, what the hell was I doing playing in that game? Like, I just said to Maisie, a couple weeks before, I couldn't even see the ball, let alone save it. And we're playing against Arsenal, and like, what? How did I get here? So it went pretty good. I got to talk into it at halftime because I didn't have the wall in the right place. And
the first hairdryer, first game.
First hairdryer, first game, which is, again, it's debatable. I'm not one to argue with Sir Alex Ferguson at the time, nor now. I think the wall was in the right place, but it doesn't matter. And then the penalty shootout, and made a couple saves. And again, it was just like, it was this fairy tale, it was this high, right? Like sign for Man United, then playing the Charity Shield, and then Community Shield, and then winning a shootout against Arsenal of all teams. Like, what? That's not supposed to happen. So I was just kind of lapping it up and taking it all in, trying to pretend like I knew what was going on.
It's a really weird situation for Manchester United because everybody had been used to Peter Schmeichel and Fabian Barthez, and then obviously beyond that, it's been Edwin van der Sar, David De Gea, and we've seen it maybe a little bit last season with Dean Henderson. But I think probably most games now we talk about who's playing, I don't know, centre back or centre forward, but you don't ever look and think, who's in goal today, because that's the one position you expect to be consistent, and it probably split fans as much as it was difficult for you. Did you find it hard, or because it was your first season, was it like, okay, well, this is it, I'm just doing what I'm doing?
Yeah, I found it hard. Probably didn't understand the magnitude of what you just said there until much later. And it was very different for Manchester United not to have a household name in goal. And look, if you look across the Premier League, to digress slightly, Premier League teams aren't afforded the luxury of bringing young goalkeepers through. Very few academy goalkeepers make it to the first team. It's not a position that can happen, right? So you have to go out and buy, and they had done that for so many years, and so for Sir Alex Ferguson to have me and Roy Carroll, not household names, two guys who weren't really sure if they were going to make it or not in goal, was hard. I think it became difficult. I had a blinding first season. It was great. Obviously the Porto game was the one real black mark on the season, but in general, I had a pretty great season. But it just became this back and forth over the next 24 months that it kind of flip-flopped, and it never really. I think what I learned from it, and again, going to Everton was amazing for my career, and obviously I stayed there 10 years, so that speaks for itself. But what I realized with goalkeepers is you have to pick the goalkeeper who you think is right, and then let them go. Because what ends up happening then is you have to live with mistakes. Even the best goalkeepers in the league make mistakes. What ends up happening is you begin to play to not make a mistake. Not whether Manchester United wins or loses today. How do I help the team win? Just how do I not make a mistake? And any footballer knows that's a recipe for disaster. That doesn't work out very well.
You touched on the Porto game just then. I wonder if we could speak about that for a second. I'm sure it's not your best memory. Sure. But obviously that happened right at the end of the game. Porto got the victory. Do you remember Jose Mourinho running down the touchline? And of course, he then wins the Champions League and his career is made. It's kind of a sliding doors moment, I guess.
I have since come to grips with the fact that I jump-started Jose Mourinho's career, yes. So it wasn't so much my mistake. No, I don't even remember him running down the touchline. Obviously, in those moments, it wasn't. You also have to remember where I was. I think footballers, I'll be the first to tell you, footballers are very insecure. Footballers are very defensive. Footballers don't want to be criticized. And at that time, I keep saying I was 22 years old, 23 years old. I wasn't able to self-assess as much. I could sit back at the end of my career and playing a World Cup and say, you and I could sit down and I could say, here's 10 actions that I had. 9 of them were very good. 1 not so good, but I could tell you why. I wasn't able to tell you why. Like I was like, I think I made the save on the free kick against Porto. I didn't think I did much wrong, and I didn't realize that there was all this scrutiny and dissecting of every single moment. I was too young to understand that. I understood that people thought it was a mistake. The magnitude of it, I wasn't able to comprehend at that time.
Do you remember the hashtag things Tim Howard could save trending after your 15 saves, which is still the record, isn't it, for a single game at a World Cup?
Yeah. I listen. I love when records get broken. I pray to God no goalkeeper ever has to break that record, because it's a long day, and you don't want to do it very often. That's for sure.
Did all of that make you feel better about the elimination? Because, I mean, this might be wrong, but I have a feeling at the time you got a phone from Barack Obama, who would have been the president, and I guess there was so much acclaim for you and your performance. Does that sort of soften the blow a little bit?
In terms of losing the game?
Yeah, and losing the game in extra time.
Yeah, I mean, look, I also think, look, as a footballer, we were underdogs, and that was Belgium's golden generation. I mean, you talk about how good they are now. That was when those kids were like coming through. Whether they will ever achieve the success they're supposed to is yet to be seen. but we were underdog. We weren't supposed to be in that game. And so when you look back on it, you always want to win. But at the same time, there's certainly an element of, I know I played really well. It'd be like a goal scorer he's scoring a hat trick and losing the game. You'd kind of be like, hey, I did a job and that feels good. So yeah, I think for America and our generation and that team, the fanfare back home was so incredible. Yeah, we lost the game, but we were in the game. We could have gone to penalties. So like there was. The country loved us, the nation loved us, and so you can imagine losing a game and still having that feeling, getting phone calls from the president. So yeah, losing sucks. No one ever gets comfortable with that. But when you give everything you have and you lose to a better opponent, that's just part of the game.
What's more daunting, speaking to the president or speaking to the gaffer? Because it's like, what number came up? Obviously, it doesn't come up the White House. Must have a number. Is it like this? I don't know. Yeah, 00, whatever.
Maisie, hit the nail on the head.
That's so cool.
No, listen.
Did you go?
Well, first of all, he doesn't actually pick up the phone and call you. Someone from the White House calls you. You have to go through like 8 secure lines, and then they'll say you're on hold waiting for the president. That being said, look, you just don't. Both speaking to Sir Alex Ferguson and Barack Obama, the President of the United States, are very similar in the fact that you just sit there and you try your best not to say anything stupid. And in fact, I Edwin van der Sar came to Man United. That year came and went. We got to about April, and speaking to my agent, and he said, right, we're going to find some teams, and you're going to, we'll go on loan. And I said, okay, good. I'll speak to Sir Alex Ferguson, and I'll let him know. And I told my wife at the time, I told my agent, I said, I'm going in. And I would go upstairs I would walk upstairs. And for about a week, I walked upstairs and I would go to the canteen and his office door was there and it was closed. And I'd go listen. And I didn't hear anything, but I said, I think he might be on the phone. I'll come back tomorrow. And it took me about a week until I knocked on the door. And I think I stuttered and stumbled over some words. And yeah, so they're both difficult.
Cool. Brilliant.